going to gain it. I know there are points that will come, and then when there is a little humor, everybody goes out and we can't come back to the reels. So this is what I wanted to focus, and I'm glad that you are on the reels. So continue to listen. You are being good boys and girls so far. Continue to listen. I'm standing by the window there.
Seminars across the country, and I teach people, and people have corporations but they fail because they don't have some of these success principles. So some of you in here today, your lives will be changed for good if you listen to this. Because when I was in Yaoundé and I was having a very, very difficult time, what happened was I had a friend, Dr. Morgan, that I dedicated my book to. I used to cry a lot because I had nobody to help me and I had no coaches. Because I had all the knowledge. I had the physics, biology, chemistry that I did in school. But I didn't have these tools that would make the needle move for me. You know, just 1 degree angle to really get me where I was going to. I didn't have that. And he asked me to write down my problem. You know, to define my problem that I was going through on a piece of paper. I defined the problem. He said, what is your problem? I said, I want to go to America. So he said, what are the solutions? Solution number 1, cry. So you've been crying a lot. Write it down. So I wrote it down. I was looking at him. You know, like when you have a friend, sometimes when the friend starts talking, you know things have changed. You know, it's like they're talking to you now from a different zone. So the next thing was like, oh, complain about your parents. Write it down. I wrote it down. Okay, look for schools in America. Write it down. So I wrote that down. He said, okay, why did you solve this problem? Did you go to America? Did you have solved my problem? Exactly. So just write it out. So I just write it out. So complain about your parents all the time. That are not helping you. They don't have money, blah, blah, blah. Is this going to solve my problem? Okay, so the next thing was like, okay, look for school. Would that solve my problem? So I put a strike mark next to that. Look for money. You need money to do your documentation. So I wrote that down. And then start getting my documentation, like the physical stuff. So I had 3 solutions. And believe me, within 2 months, I was in America. So these principles that I'm teaching you, you know, I just want to develop them. Because the principles work. They are laws of nature that have been put here on earth by God. The laws work. It's like physics. Some of you here do physics, like gravity. You can't change those laws, right? You can only walk in flow with those laws. And the laws work because, see, the creator of the universe, God, when he made those laws, he realized that we'll forget. We'll try to make our own principles. And the more principles that we make, the more complicated life will become. So he made very, very simple principles that when you flow with these principles, you see things just happening. Somebody in here might have been saying, man, I wish somebody would help me. I'm sure God, you here has had that desire. Right? Then here I am. Because you've done that desire thing. That's one of the laws of the universe. So these principles that I'm sharing with you, if you implement them, you will be like a step higher than a lot of children all over the world. So we've talked about choice, we've talked about foundation. One of the things you have to realize, you have to train your mind to dwell on the essentials. Train your mind to dwell on the essentials, to dwell on the relevant issues. Because your mind is where everything happens. Your mind is a battlefield. Your mind can take you to the moon. Your mind can have you, creating anything you want. Your mind can have you solving the most difficult physics problems. Your mind can have you pray. Your mind can have you meditate. But you have to train your mind so that you focus on the things that are essential. And how do you train your mind? First is the choice. Second, you develop tools like prayer. You develop tools like words, mantras, poems. That when you are working on something and you get distracted, you repeat that. It could be a song you sing until your mind settles down. Because initially when you try to use your mind to focus, what is going to happen is that you start thinking about all the problems in the world. You think about somebody you had to call. Think about, did I do the dishes? Or did I solve that problem? Oh, that person told me this. Let me follow up with them. That's what happens. when you start training your mind. But the more you do it, the more your system will work with you. So the most important thing you have to realize is that you have to start training your mind to focus on the essentials. There are a lot of children who have what we call in America attention deficit disorder. They can't sit still. But the beauty about growing up in Cameroon is that you can sit still. And that will help you a lot in the future. So another point I want to talk about a success principle is your words. The power of your words. So everything that happens in the world is a word spoken or a thought. And an exercise I want to ask you about is how do you pray? Like, you know, I don't know how to pray. How do you pray? Just one person. Anybody this way? Okay.
I pray by making my spirit connected to heaven and jotting down the points I wish to pray for.
You jot down the points, so you write them down.
Yes.
That you wish to pray for. But you still haven't told me how you pray. You just jot down the points. Then how does the prayer happen? I want you all to be thinking about this. How do you pray? Because I went somewhere and I asked a child to pray. The child asked me, "Priez c'est quoi?" How do you teach that child to pray? This is if you get this will change your life. This particular point. All these points are very important. Okay, to pray, there are two tools that you use. When you pray, you use two tools. One of the tools is thought, right? When you sit down to pray, what do? You are silent, and then you do what? You think, right? Do we agree on that? That you just think? Another thing you do when you pray is while you speak. Somebody might say, let's pray now. Then you might say the Lord's Prayer. You might say, oh, our dear Heavenly Father. What have you used? Words. Right? So you have used thoughts or you have used words. What happens is that you who is praying says, let me pray. So after you pray for like 1 minute or 30 seconds, what happens? You continue speaking. Or you continue thinking, right? And you think that little 1 minute that you pray, that is the end of your prayer, right? Is that what happens? And obviously I pray this morning, right? And you pray again this evening. Or you pray when you are eating. Do you really think that God stopped everything He was doing and listened to you only at that one minute? Do you believe that? Yes. Or when you were thinking, who believes that? That God stopped everything and listened only that 1 minute. So what does that imply? It implies that every time you think and every time you speak, what is happening? You are praying. Because you are the one who lay down in prayer. It's like reading the book and highlighting the paragraph. And then it's like you ignore the rest of the book. But that's not what really happens. What happens is that every time you speak and every time you think, you are praying. That's why it's possible to pray without. Exactly. Now you know why. It's possible to pray without thinking. I know some of you are scared to think about the things you've been thinking about. You know? Because that's why sometimes you might think about someone that will call you, right? Because that is your prayer. You might think you want to eat something and somebody offers you that. You say, oh my God, I was just thinking about eating this one. Or my auntie cooked this, my mom cooked this, I was just thinking about that. You think about the special present and somebody offers you that present, right? Because your thoughts are constantly creating. If you get this point, this will change your life. So every time you think, like creating. If you're a Bible student, when God wanted to create the world, He thought about it, then He spoke it. He thought about it, then He spoke it. We are microcosms of that big God. So every time you are speaking, you are praying. So if you speak about me, that's your prayer of me. If you gossip about me, that's your prayer of me. If you say I am good, that's your prayer of me. I'll keep on being good. So sometimes you see students that keep failing because people are thinking negatively about